So like I say, for Sunday, August 6th, 2016, just start again. This is the Pro and Con Show live on Facebook Live. Also, this version of this, copy of it ends up on Otten 2020 on my YouTube channel, Otten 2020. So the purpose of the show is to encourage us to be better citizens, to be more engaged in finding the truth, which is the simple things like the who, the what, the where, and the when, and to avoid, or at least identify, all the opinion and bias that comes at us from the various sources. So from right hand to left, we have the Breitbart News, and then Fox News, and then NPR, National Public Radio, has a website, and they're normally mostly unbiased. And then CNN is more left-leaning, and then Huffington Post, more left-leaning still. And so today's topic is impeachment. So over the course of the last week or so, there's been a lot of discussion about Mr. Trump talking to the president or the leaders of at least a couple of different countries outside this, foreign countries, obviously outside our country, the Ukraine being a big one, and basically pressuring them to find political fodder against his potential competition from the Democratic Party. And so this is really totally and completely against the norms that and certainly the Constitution. It's all based on the emoluments clauses and other articles regarding the president and regarding the various leaders of our country. They're all supposed to be focused on our country and take information from sources within our country and not from foreign governments. This is a big problem identified by the folks that wrote the Constitution, and so they were adamant and wrote several locations into the Constitution that basically forbade us from trying to get help politically from external sources. And so on Huffington Post, for example, which is admittedly a left-leaning, I'm going to just have to turn this the other way here. For some reason it's not rotating. So Ron off the rails. So I live in the state of Wisconsin, and guess what? Ron Johnson, who is he's one of my senators here in the state of Wisconsin, and he was on NBC's Meet the Press, and he and NBC's Chuck Todd got into a heated argument because basically, so it said Johnson, when he first heard of this thing with Trump and Trump pressing the president of Ukraine for information on his competitor, he winced. And so Chuck Todd is asking Johnson why he said he winced when a U.S. ambassador told him that the aid to the Ukraine was contingent on an investigation into former Vice President Joe Biden. But Johnson, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, dodged the question, instead pushed a conspiracy theory about the origins of Mueller's Russia investigation. And so Chuck Todd says, well, what does that have to do with the Ukraine? I have no idea why you are pushing a Fox conspiracy propaganda point and why it's popping up here in this conversation. And then Senator Johnson responded by defending Mr. Trump and his supporters for being upset with the media. And then Chuck Todd responded, this is not about the media. Senator Johnson, please, can we please answer the question that I asked you instead of trying to make Mr. Trump feel better here that you are not criticizing him? I'm asking you a simple question. And at that point, Johnson then acknowledged that he was upset to hear that military aid was being withheld until the Ukraine committed to investigate Biden. He said, I didn't want those connected But here's the salient point of why I came forward. When I asked the president about that, he completely denied it. He said, I'd never do that. So that was the piece of the puzzle I'm here to report today. So the president is now denying it, of course. But there's at least two different witnesses, whistleblower witnesses, that are testifying to the opposite of that. And then also, Mr. Trump, his White House, actually released the content of the phone call in a transcript, and in there he presses the president of Ukraine for information on Biden in exchange for military assistance. So it's in the words that of course, he will deny that he ever said it, and the transcript is wrong, and they made a mistake or whatever. And if you watched the show from yesterday, that's exactly what a con man's going to do, right? So anyway, that's the treatment from Huffington Post on the impeachment thing. When I look at CNN, CNN is pointing out, is this going to start turning? No, it's not. So CNN is pointing out that Mr. Trump has a fixation on corruption. And he says, everything around him, he is not corrupt, but everything around him is corrupt, and all news media is corrupt. And of course, any news media that in any way criticizes him, as long as they're not criticizing him, then they're perfect. But as soon as they're critical of him, then they're corrupt. And he's basically saying that all of the government is absolutely corrupt, and he is the singular reed of integrity in an otherwise vast wasteland of corruption, which of course some of his followers are very happy to try to jump onto that train, because they that was one of the reasons why they elected him. They wanted him to be different from everyone else, and he is different in that he's probably even more corrupt than most of them. Anyway, so that's so CNN again, left-leaning. So now let's see what NPR says about this subject. So here, the top lead on NPR is the second whistleblower with direct knowledge of the Ukraine call has stepped forward. So an attorney named Mark Zaid, who is also part of the initial whistleblowers legal team, tells NPR that a new whistleblower has talked to the Inspector General of the intelligence community. So there's a second fellow. We don't know who this is, and that probably is not a picture of him. There's a second whistleblower that's come forward. It says he's an eyewitness to the phone call, which again, the transcript, they've already released the transcript. The President of the United States and his staff out of the White House already released the transcript with all these words in it. So, you would think that would not require additional eyewitness testimony, but okay, when you have a con man who constantly denies everything, you can never have enough information, enough data. Okay. So that's NPR. So there are no articles today, but in the past they talked about the Democrats potentially having enough votes. So on Fox News, their headline is that the Democrats feel like they're crossing the threshold. House Democrats believe that they have enough votes to pass articles of impeachment. Okay, so what they're saying is that the Democrats actually have a fairly significant majority in the House of Representatives. So even if they have, I don't know, it's some number like 80% or 85% of the Democrats in the House, that would be enough to pass on the articles of impeachment to the Senate. And the Senate actually, so it's basically, again, just to reiterate the way impeachment works, the House recommends is basically the prosecutor gathers the information, recommends impeachment to the Senate, and the Senate is where the trial actually occurs. So they take the information from the House, gather some additional information as they see fit, and then the Senate votes to actually truly impeach, or to they either vote to convict, or the other word, which I'm not thinking of, the opposite. Dang it, I hate that when I have a senior moment. We all do. So, so it says here, Lindsey Graham vows that the whistleblowers will testify publicly. Biden calls Trump unhinged. Republican Representative Chris Stewart dismisses the second whistleblower. Why should I care? So on. Oh, and then Senator Chris Murphy, who is a Democrat, accuses Senator Ron Johnson, who again is a Republican representative or senator from the state of Wisconsin, that he told Mr. Trump that it was perfectly okay to solicit foreign interference in trying to investigate Mr. Biden. Who knows what's true and what's not, but anyway. And then finally, Breitbart. So Breitbart has some information here. They're saying an MIT researcher has done a poll. Swing voters are repelled by Medicare for All and open borders agenda. And then according to Politico, impeachment is a flop in a key suburban swing district. And then another article, Elizabeth Warren's anti-corruption plan does not prevent Hunter Biden or a Hunter Biden scenario. So he is accused of having some interaction with the government and profiting from it when he was in the Ukraine. Then there's another fellow, John Brennan, who I think was a former government official. There's real question about the stability of the U.S. government under Trump. Another article that says the whistleblower attorney actively sought anti-Trump informants. So this is, again, Breitbart is right-leaning or Trump-supporting generally. And so they have a tendency to try to push that agenda of any information against Mr. Trump must be totally politically driven and cannot be, and therefore must be totally discounted. And then there's another thing here. According to USA Today poll, 2-to-1 margin of Americans say investigating Biden is legitimate. And I agree. I don't think there's any problem at all with investigating Hunter Biden and then Vice President Biden. I don't think there's any problem in it at all. If that's one of the things that these politicians need to understand is the appearance of corruption is almost as bad as being corrupt. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at what you're going to do, the decisions that you make, the interfaces that you have. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, I'm not going to do this, because if I do, the public is going to perceive that I'm doing something corrupt. An example was during the 2016 election. There was an ongoing discussion and investigation into Hillary Clinton and some emails and the server use and so on. And the Attorney General of the United States was sitting on a plane, and Hillary Clinton's husband, former President Bill Clinton, took the opportunity to board her plane and speak to her in private for a period of time. I think it was an hour or something like that, according to the media. Now, I understand that, politicians like to talk or whatever, but that was really stupid from the standpoint of even the appearance of corruption. And the Attorney General, and I think the Attorney General later said, that was dumb on my part. I should not have accepted even pursuing any kind of conversation. Supposedly, it was innocent. It was not about the investigation or whatever. It doesn't matter. It has the appearance that it would be. It has the appearance that the Clintons were trying to peddle power through their, association and friendship with these other people that they've known. You can't do that. And, so I've been in private business for a long time, and, you have these ethics, we have ethics training on a regular basis, and this is brought up repeatedly, annually, semi-annually. Don't do things that will have the appearance of corruption. Don't do it. Don't even go down that path. And if there's any question at all, you ask, your manager, you ask other people on the team, would this appear to be some kind of corrupt thing to do? And if the answer is yes from anyway, you just don't do it. Okay? So, yeah, sure. Investigate Mr. Biden. Sure. And Hunter Biden. Because why is that all right? Well, because they put themselves in a position where it could appear like they were doing something corrupt. Whether or not they did or didn't, they certainly left themselves open to that perception. Okay, that is clear. That is true. All right, so that's where the impeachment stands. Is it looks like the Democrats are going to aggressively pursue some additional investigation and gathering of information, a bunch of witnesses and stuff like that. We'll see how successful they are in getting some of the people around Mr. Trump to testify, and then I would imagine, this being October, sometime in November, about a year before next year's election, they will proceed with voting articles of impeachment and give that to the Senate this year, is my expectation. All right, so that's the latest on impeachment, and this is the Pro and Con Show. It's Sunday, August 6th, 2019. Till the next show, bye for now.